Hello everyone. So today I'm going to present my project presentation for my this semestral project of educational technology course. So the topic is differences in conceptual understanding of STEM subjects in primary level students of decentralized educational system of Pakistan. So let's move ahead with our presentation. And first we would look the uh, uh, after having presenting this project presentation, I would just put the YouTube link of this presentation here at this page for the public to view. So the final deliverable zip file which I have to submit would contain these many artifacts. These are 9 plus artifacts which contain paper and presentation file and surveys and all the data which I've gathered along the way while conducting this project. So that would be available in the zip file which I would be submitting. And so here's the presentation outline. First, I would talk about the problem, what actually the problem is, whose solution I'm going to find, then the strategy I've developed to solve the problem, and then the survey results or the surveys which I have conducted in order to solve the problem. And another need finding activity, which is interviews. I conducted the interviews. I would present the results of interviews. Then I would present some of the results of my discussions, which I had with domain experts and their opinions, and I would present my analysis. And at the last, I would suggest and present some recommendations that how the differences or gaps in scientific understanding for the basic scientific STEM subjects at primary level can be boosted, can be promoted, can be enhanced. So some of the recommendations based on my need finding activities and my discussions with experts and all the material I gathered throughout the course of the project. Based on that, keeping in view all those activities, I would suggest some recommendations, some necessary steps to be taken for making or for strengthening the policies for the promotion of basic scientific concepts at primary level. So at last, I will present some of the conclusions and future perspectives, keeping in view my project. So first of all, here's the overview. So the title of or the project statement is for my project is differences in conceptual understanding of STEM. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics subjects in primary level students of decentralized educational system of Pakistan. So what this project says is that uh, I have gone through various need finding activities and discussions to know and uncover that in a decentralized educational system of Pakistan, where we have a number of educational structures currently practicing, which are public schools, primary, private schools, and madrasas. So, madrasas are basically the educational institutions who primarily or heavily lay their stress on gaining the knowledge of religious knowledge. So those educations who mostly provide the education towards religious knowledge are called madrasas. So what I've done in this project is I uncovered the differences of basic scientific concepts in basic STEM subjects, which were science, general science, mathematics, and English, which are usually taught at primary level here in Pakistan. So I've just uncovered the differences of these basic scientific concepts in these subjects at various institutions which include the institutions from public schools, primary schools, and madrasas, and just compare that. First of all, are there differences? Then how much there are differences? And then why are these differences of basic scientific concepts in these educational institutions? And finally, I concluded and presented some recommendations that how can we bridge these gaps of scientific educations, keeping in view those differences. So basically in Pakistan, STEM subjects at primary level which are taught are math, general science, and English. So these are the three subjects which are taught here in Pakistan. So the strategy to just to attack this problem and just get the solution includes that I conducted three surveys. One survey I conducted from my peers to get the maturity or the usefulness of my original survey, which I presented to primary level students afterwards. So I sought the opinion of my peers on peer survey platform that how useful or how mature my original survey is. Another, so second survey I conducted was the original survey which I conducted from the students of public schools, private schools, and madrasas. Remember, I talked about madrasas, who are the religious schools who primarily taught students about religious knowledge and education. And then third survey or the final survey, that is basically the post activity survey. I just name it. So then that survey I conducted with my peers again to know their experiences when they were in their primary level, that how they that if they experience the gap in their scientific understanding, if they ever experience that, and do they think that are there scientific gaps in the concepts of variety of schools in the underserved communities and countries like Asia and other, where there is lack of funding and other scientific resources. Then, as another need finding activity, I conducted interviews from science teachers, primary level science teachers, and institutional heads. Also, I talked about and discussed this matter with local educational experts who had really good grip on local educational policies, and I'd conduct the content session so to know about these gaps and why are these gaps and how we can bridge these gaps. Then I had a frequent meetups with with primary level students to know what their perspective is and how they are indulged in primary level scientific education, about their interests and their motivation and about their way forward. And then I had a review of local educational policies, but how our local educational policy address these basic scientific concepts at primary level, or do they promote it or not, or how do they promote it, and how much this local educational policy is mature. So first I will talk about my feedback survey. First of the survey, which this one here, one from the peers to get feedback about the maturity and usefulness of my original survey. So here are the results, some of the data inventory kind of results about my feedback survey. So the feedback survey, I posted on it on peer survey platform. I got a quick 15 responses. So 80% of participants said that this survey is relevant to the problem which you are talking about, and it contains the relevant data and questions to address. So few participants just suggested that this questionnaire is too long and it has and needs to include some variety of more questions. So accordingly, I just cut down that survey and made some enhanced changes to that survey, keeping in view the suggestions of my participants. So the original survey is present here. You can just view that, and you can just go here, this link, and view that, and then modified survey is present here. So what my peers said about the feedback survey. So five of the participant said that this survey contains enough data. So the data which is present on my original survey, which I had to ultimately present that survey to the primary level students of private schools and public schools and madrasas. So that contains, my peers said that they think that this survey contains enough data. So, and 10 students said that that survey fulfills the requirements for which it targets. Three of participants suggested some minor changes, so which I made and ultimately modified my survey, original survey. So this is another analysis which I've done on my peer survey. So 5% my surveys said that surveys as a need finding exercise or methodology may not be feasible because they think that it may not captures adequate amount of data. So they were the kind of 5% said that maybe surveys may not be useful. 10% said that surveys along with one another technique uh, is very useful. So 85% said that surveys are useful. So what I've done is along with surveys, I included interviews as an supporting as another need finding activity. So in this project, I just not only conducted surveys, but interviews, multiple interview sessions to get as much mature and as much good amount of data as possible. So now let's talk about the second survey, which I name it original survey. So this survey I presented to the students of primary level, students of public school, one primary, one private school, and one madrasa or religious school, you can say. So here in this slide and in next few slides, I will talk about the results and analysis which I've got or which I've just determined from after conducting the original survey with the actual targeted community or targeted audience, which are the uh, primary level students. So I have presented basic analysis here. So so here are some of the data inventory questions whose answers are present here. So 30 participants from each school, which is a private school, public school, and madrasa, were selected in a classroom setting. 30 minutes per sessions were usually we had 30 minutes per session, and a total of 3 sessions were conducted. So age of the students lie usually between 10 to 12 years. 60% were boys, whereas 40% were girls. So survey questionnaire is available here at this. So the original survey questionnaire is available here at this URL. So here are some of the prelim analysis of the original survey which I've conducted. So before conducting the survey, I had a quick interview session with students to know about their interest in STEM subjects and why they had this interest. So I have summarized the responses uh, on that why uh, they think they have their favorite subject is favorite to them, or they have the interest to that subject. So what I found is the students likeliness towards STEM subject was found equal, that equal number of students liked English, math, and general science. That was kind of surprising for me, but I just found it in my need finding activity. Students like their favorite science subject, which they call it that this particular subject is favorite, and they think that why this subject is interesting to them. So these are some of their responses. 40% said that its application are really fascinating. 20% said that its contents are easy to remember. 20% said that they initially got good marks in that subject. That's why they think that uh, that subject is favorite to them. So even 20% more students respond that their favorite subject is comparatively easy than other. And so here are some of the results of the original survey. So I've presented these results keeping in view different type of school structures. So this particular graph here present the results of the scientific subjects, scientific concepts gap between the students of public and private schools. So this particular result I generated keeping in view the discussions with students, with science teachers, institution heads, and keeping in view the results of original survey. So my original survey contained kind of questions from math, general science, English, like 10 or 8 questions, basic questions from these 3 subjects, because these 3 subjects are the key science subjects taught at primary level. So they were the 5th grade level 8 to 10 questions in each subject I presented in my original survey. So this graph presents the scientific concepts gap between public and private schools. So over here at x-axis we have private. I have three elements which are private schools are better, public schools are better, neutral, and percentage of participants who had that opinion. So 85%, keeping in view the results of original survey questionnaire containing the questions equivalent to fifth grade for English, math, and general science, and keeping in view the discussions I had with science teachers and institution head and teachers, what I found was is that 85% of the participants of the study stated their opinion that private schools are much better. I would talk about later that why these results, that why they think that private schools are better. 10% thought that public schools are better. 5% remain neutral, that they weren't on any side. So this is one of my preliminary analysis, keeping in view the gap between public and private schools. Similarly, next slide, there's a gap between there's this graph which present the gap between public schools and madrasas. So similarly, as the previous graph, we have a response type on x-axis and percentage of participants in y-axis. So it says public schools are 97% respondents say that public schools are much better than madrasas. Only 1% of the participants said that madrasas are better, and 2% remain neutral. They did not had any conclusion or any response between these two. So I would later talk about that why this particular difference of opinion is generated here. So this is a general. I've just presented the results of my need finding activities and discussions with teachers and institution heads and educational experts. Similarly, this third graph, as the two before, this graph also presents scientific concepts gap between now private schools and madrasas. So 99%, like almost kind we can say 100% said that we can say that 99% respondents said that private schools are much better than madrasas, and 1% state that they remain neutral. So I would also similarly I would present later on in this presentation that why the respondents said or why the respondents had that opinion. So what are the background reasons behind these results which I have generated, keeping in view my original survey need finding activity. So now this is another type of results which are subject-wise results, keeping in view public schools, private schools, and madrasas. So this particular graph here shows basic concepts of primary level students at primary levels in English, math, and general science. So again, I just generated this result keeping in view the responses I've got from regional survey, discussions with science teachers and institution heads and local educational experts. So what I have found is, so what and this particular graph shows is that x-axis we have three STEM subjects which are taught here in Pakistan as STEM subjects at primary level, which are math, English, and general science, and y-axis we have percentage of concepts maturity in that subject for that school type, which here is private schools. So 85% maturity of concept of math we have, what I have found in private schools. 95% maturity score I got for English, and a 90% general science maturity I got from private schools in STEM subjects. Same graph I've just presented here for public school this time. 80% maturity score I got for math, 92% maturity score I got for English, and 87% of maturity score I got for general science. A similar graph I got from for madrasas. So math, that was a 60% score. That is pretty low than previous two type of schools, which are private schools and public schools. For English, I got a 50% score, and for general science, I got a 40% score. So I would let talk about that. Why are these differences of concept maturity, and what are the reasons behind that? So third survey which I conducted after just conducting all the interviews and two surveys. So this I named it post-activity peer survey. I again conducted a peer survey on peer survey platform. I conducted a survey with my peers to know about their particular experiences with basic science concepts when they were at their primary level. Uh, so, why this is important? Because this gives a comparative analysis, because my peers are are a diversified community living across the globe. So I really want to know that what may be a global comparative analysis, so that I am able to compare it with the Pakistan, to know that what actually is kind of, we can say, less or deficient here in Pakistan and Pakistani educational infrastructure. So this I conducted with this particular activity, survey activity I conducted with my peers on peer survey platform, to know about their opinion, to know about their experiences of basic science subjects and their concepts when they were at their primary level. So here are some of the results. So 38 participants at peer survey platform participated in this activity. Among them, 31 were male and 7 were female. 25 of them studied English, math, and general science during their primary level. Some of them studied one another which, subject along with English, math, and general science. Like 5 or 6 participants said that they also studied computer science. 4 or 5 said that they also studied basic engineering subject along with these three subjects. So, and they said that participants like their favorite subjects owing to uh, participants basically like their favorite subject because they think that it's easy and problem, and owing to the fact that problem solving is very easy. So most of the participant of my post-activity peer survey thought that their favorite subject is because owing to its ease. 80% of the participants said that they had no gap in scientific understanding when they were in the primary level uh, uh, education. During their primary level education, they found that the STEM subjects they were taking, so there were no scientific understanding gap. 80% thought that. 85% said that they think there are gaps of basic scientific understanding as far as the underserved communities or countries are concerned. So they gave a variety of reasons for that. Some said that it's owing to the less or restricted funding. Some said that it's going to the fact that teachers are not trained. Some said that usually students are not interested in STEM subjects, or usually students are not self-paced, and other reasons. So 85% said that in underserved communities and countries, there is a lack of basic scientific understanding, and there are gaps when it comes to variety of schools like public schools, private schools, and madrasas, which are religious schools. 82% thought that good private schools provide sound basic science education. And why they thought, they gave the reason, because some have said thought that the standardized educational policies which good private schools have. Also, funding plays a great role when it comes to imparting the education, because when you have a good amount of funding, you can train teachers well, you can hire good faculty, you can build science labs and other things. And also, participant pointed out that provision of basic science subjects is very important. So at national level or in underserved communities and countries, basic science subjects promotion is necessary. And also use of latest technological aids and tools for teaching and learning can enhance the basic science education and concepts, so which good schools usually use. So let's have an analysis of the fact that we just talked about and we saw the results of various need finding activities and found that there are gaps. There are gaps when it comes to the students, primary level students of public schools, primary schools, and madrasas. We found in the results that the primary level students of private school are great. They are doing good in their science subjects, so let's see that why these differences exist in a decentralized educational infrastructure of Pakistan. What are the background reasons behind this? So I've compiled some of the compelling reasons here, keeping in view the are based on these facts are based these reasons are based on the need finding activities I carried out, and with the discussions I had with the faculty members, science teachers, and local educational experts. So let's review these reasons. First is government-run institutions, which we call public schools. They have very restricted, or just we can say just enough resources to promote basic science subjects and concepts. There are a limited number of labs, and there is just some in some schools there is not enough funding when it comes to funding, and teachers are usually now government is paying attention towards this, and they are hiring some good faculty with good qualification. But again, when it comes to government-run public schools, there is no check and balance, and usually teacher salaries and other perks in government-run schools, it is kind of just we can say enough for the teachers, but not good. But when it comes to private schools hire good teachers with good salaries, and but the fact that fees and other charges with the school charge from students, private school charge a high amount of fees from the students, whereas public schools and madrasas just charge very nominal fee. Check and balance system. So in private schools, there is a great check and balance system on teachers, on their targets, and they regularly check the students' understanding and their performances, and the teachers' performance. Whereas in public schools, there is a lack of check and balance system. There is no regulated kind of such system where the teachers are audited and checked about their targets, and students are also assessed on their performances, keeping in view the concepts. And madrasas, similarly, madrasas have very weak check and balance system. Some of the madrasas usually don't teach science subjects. They usually heavily rely on the religious education. But some very few madrasas just who teach these science subjects at primary level, they don't have such usually they don't have such check and balance system. Another reason is the incorporation of local and international syllabi. Public schools and madrasas usually teach local syllabi, which is not state of the art, whereas private schools usually have international syllabi. So when it comes to international syllabi, the concepts presented in that syllabi is really well versed in state of the art. So hence a usual gap is created when it comes to scientific concepts between primary level students of private school, public schools, and madrasas. Also, the science labs and other allied resources are very well managed, and they are good at private schools, whereas public schools usually don't have that much enough funding, and madrasas usually have very weak situation as far as the science lab and allied resources are concerned. They usually don't have those labs. Madrasas don't have those labs, but public schools have the labs, but that's not at par with the labs or other allied resources of that private schools. Exam exams and assessments of for science subjects are varied as far as these public and private schools are concerned. Private schools usually will pay attention towards the conceptual understanding of students, whereas public schools somehow don't take this into account and usually take into account the memorization or the rote memorization of the concepts. Also, co-curricular and extracurricular activities are usually promoted in public schools, but not on the private schools and madrasas. And also, there is a lack of national policy who promote the basic science concepts, who promote the concept STEM subjects, concept at primary level. So there should be a policy for the promotion of basic science concepts. So this was basic analysis, or we can say kind of a quick review that why there are these differences existing, that why these differences exist between the students of primary schools, public schools, and madrasas. Also, there are some other contributing factors which just promote these differences. So here I have reviewed those for five very prominent factors, which are student family background. Usually, students with good family background go to private schools because they can pay the huge fees, and students from mediocre schools go usually to public schools or madrasas, and students who are very weak, they usually go to madrasas because their families prefer them to go to these schools. And also one another trend is here that families who are biased or who are more diverted towards religious education usually send their children to madrasas. So financial status is another similar very important factor. So um, those parents who have a good financial status send their students to good private schools, and those do not, they prefer their children to go to madrasas or public schools. Now, another thing is cultural background. So when it comes to Pakistan has diverse culture. So usually those students whose parents are more diverted toward religious education, they send their children to or to the madrasas, and those who are kind of, we can say, more enlightened or who are more diverted towards the recent uh, enlightenment, so they send their children to private schools. So so another reason is the students belonging to areas. So usually students of urban areas, they prefer kind of these private schools, and students belonging to far-flung areas or the rural areas, they usually prefer public school because there are only public schools. Private schools are have very limited access to remote areas. And and the last thing is social status. So social status is one another factor, that socially well students usually prefer private schools, and other students and those who are not socially well or don't have social circle which has great power, they usually prefer to go to public schools. So and there are some more factors which will cultivate these differences. So students having strong financial background, they go to private school. Students from religious background prefer madrasas. Students from mediocre financial background go to public school. Students from urban areas and who are regularly financed prefer private school. Students living in rural areas prefer public schools owing to its access and low cost, and shifting rate from one school type to other is low. Usually there is very low shifting rate from like students is uh, studying in public school, so it's very low. It's very low that he or she could move to private school. Also, there are some expectations, some exceptions to the above mentioned factors. There are some exceptions, like there are some cases where students usually change schools frequently from one school type to another. I'd also had some quick sessions with local educational experts who had great grip on local educational policies and local educational structure. So I went one session with them to gain insight that why are these differences and how we can bridge these gaps of basic scientific understanding. So conducted interviews. So the outcome of those interviews are presented here. So, according to them, they think that standardization of educational structure, educational resources, or various elements of education. So their standardization is missing from government side. So government can impose, or government can just bring in the standardization, and that standardization or standardized policies can bridge this gap. Social injustice or social imbalance is another factor which cause these differences of understanding and eventual scientific understanding. Also, poverty alleviation. So, those families who are poor, they are unable to send the students to good schools owing to high fees. Also, social clustering, as socially Pakistan is clustered into various clusters. So, again, when it comes to various social circles, so this also impacts the students' learning in which school it's learning. Is it a good school or kind of a school where not adequate attention is paid towards scientific education? Also, less attention towards scientific education and provision of relevant resources. So there is kind of no such educational policy who pays attention towards basic scientific concept or basic scientific education and its promotion or the provision of relevant resources. So there should be such kind of policy, standardized policy. And one other thing is unavailability of educational experts who could lead educational initiatives. So currently, there are local experts there are some experts who just take interest in just bridging these gaps, but there are no such educational experts workforce available who could lead such educational initiatives, which could bring a strong basic scientific understanding of STEM subjects. Also, the syllabi, which is currently implemented in various schools, is not standardized. So, some schools, like private schools, follow international syllabi like GABA and Oxford, and other public schools who just follow the local syllabi, who's very deficient of science concepts. And also memorization rather than conceptual understanding is prevailed here in educational infrastructure of Pakistan. Students' main aim is to pass the exam or get good numbers rather than to understand the concept and its implementation. So these are some of the outcome I received from the interviews I conducted with local educational experts. So now comes towards the recommendations or suggestions, keeping in view all these activities which I've carried out in this project, which include surveys, interviews, discussions, and discussions with students and teachers. So keeping in view all those things or all those need finding activities in mind, I've came to compile these recommendations which needs to be followed to promote basic science education and to bridge the gaps which are currently here in Pakistan at primary level owing to the various educational infrastructures which include private schools, public schools, and religious institutions like madrasas. So, what are these recommendations? So, we would just go one by one, and we would see that how they would impact for the betterment of basic scientific education and its promotion. So, first is there should be a standardized syllabi across the board for various educational structures currently present in Pakistan. So, educational syllabi needs to be standardized and needs to be implemented across the board across various educational infrastructures. Second is, as primary level education is kind of paramount importance, and its quality is also an equal a quality primary level education is very important. So there should be a national education policy, and in the existing national educational policy, special attention should be paid towards basic science education and its promotion, so that when it's going to be part of this national education policy, it would naturally be promoted. to its next levels. Third, we have about the financials or the fees which students have to pay. So fees and other charges should be standardized in such a way that standardized and quality education should be in reach of every student. Currently, keeping view the poverty, students of lower class cannot afford the fees or cannot afford the higher fees of private school and good schools. So these fees and other charges should be standardized. Also, teachers, especially science teachers, should be trained and they should be well versed on the latest and state of the art educational updates or the state of the art or recent educational syllabi, so that when they teach the student, they teach the students latest and state of the art scientific concepts, so that students should be able to align themselves with the global educational community of their level. Also, a national policy to promote the scientific learning needs to be established. There should be scientific there should be a national policy who should primarily promote basic scientific concept promotion, and that needs to be established. Also, a well-defined, coherent, and complete check and balance. So it should be a complete, well-defined, and coherent check and balance system should be implemented on schools where science education at primary level is part of syllabi. Currently, keeping at madrasas and public schools, there is kind of very weak check and balance system, showing to which these gaps are there, these differences are there. So a well-defined, coherent, and complete check and balance system should be implemented. Also, science teachers should be adequately paid in order to maintain a conducive learning environment. They should be given the adequate perks and salaries. So this thing needs to be redefined, and this thing needs to be paid attention towards. Also, frequent educational facility audits and checks should be made. So, the experts from the National Educational Ministry or that higher authority should have frequent educational facility audits and checks to make sure that they are running according to the standards. For student assessment and exams, conceptual understanding should be considered, not the mere rote memorization. Currently, usually, Currently in Pakistan, students' aim usually is to pass the exam and get good marks, and not the conceptual understanding. So, students' exams and assessments should be focused towards conceptual and towards the checking of conceptual understanding of that subject or the concepts. A basic guidance at primary level needs to be there, and it's of paramount importance, which should direct the students that where their interest is or where their direction is going to be. So, a basic guidance at primary level to students about their potential interests in science education should be provided. So that's by necessity, and that should be part of the uh, national educational policy for the promotion of scientific or STEM subjects. Also, a special committee from within the educational department having personnel with diverse expertise should be made to ensure the implementation of a best aspect. So, for the complete check and balance, that there should be an authority or committee which should make sure that all the above mentioned aspects or all the elements of the national educational policy for the promotion of scientific or STEM subjects are adhered and are well implemented, so that special action committee should be formed, and they should have frequent audits and checks and visits to review and confirm that national education policy is implemented with full spirit. So, here are some conclusions and future perspectives. Keeping in view all the activities which I've carried out, all the need finding activities, all discussions and interviews which I've carried out during the course of this project. So, first of all, we admit that there are differences in scientific understanding at primary level in various educational infrastructure, which are primary schools, public schools, and madrasas. So it's basically owing to lacks in educational infrastructure, which I've pointed out in my presentation. So a long-term and realizable educational policy is need of the hour. So that educational policy needs to be implemented and needs to be enforced, and which is very much needed now. Check and balance system, a strong check and balance system should be implemented, and it's required. Also, as a way forward and as a future perspective, a comparison with other educational systems to know how they are functioning, to a comparison with successful educational systems who have successfully promoted the scientific subjects or STEM subjects at primary level needs to be there, or needs we need to have that comparisons to check that why they are successful and how they have made their educational policies and how they have implemented. So such a comparison needs to be made. So this is a potential way forward. Also, another way forward is promoting students' interest in science, another future step. So at national educational policy, we need to consider that how we can promote students' interest in basic science subject or STEM subjects right from primary level, so that once they grow up or when they move to higher classes, their interest also grows and their interest remains. Or we could establish a workforce of students who are really interested in STEM subjects, so they once they be professional. So we have a good number of professionals who have good scientific understanding and who are really knowledgeable in the field of science. So this promotion of students' interest right from primary level is very important. So and this was my presentation for the final project. So thank you for your time, and